Hello, hello, and welcome to this week's conversation on the Low No Drinker podcast, bringing you closer to the people, places, and brands leading the low, no, and light alcohol revolution. It is a lovely spring morning, or at least it was when I wrote this introduction. It started raining now, but that's okay because I'm very excited to be speaking to my guest today because he's a man that always brings a smile to my face. It is the very lovely, very funny, and very hard-working Jonny Hughes. Jonny is one half of the co-founding husband and wife couple behind Penthouse Cocktails, which is a at-home cocktail subscription brand that serves both alcohol-free and alcohol-full drinkers, and I love that. Jonny is also a brilliant writer and a regular contributor to Low No Drinker magazine. He shared articles with Low No Nation on everything from masculinity in sobriety, drinking alcohol-free drinks at work, and whether you can truly appreciate low and no without comparing it to the hard stuff. So today we are chatting about the unique challenges of running a business that serves both alcohol-free and alcohol-full drinkers, doing that as a working couple, making cocktails at home, and just Jonny's general perspective on the low-no drinks industry as he's seen it. So I'm very glad to have him here, and welcome, Jonny. How are you doing, my lovely?
I'm doing very well, Denise. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the lavish amounts of praise you've heaped upon me. I do hope I can live up to that intro. Very happy to be
It's all well
here.
deserved.
Oh,
Good. It's all well deserved. Honestly, your writing in the magazine does always make me chuckle. And I love the fact that you don't hold back. For the listeners and watchers at home, I always like to start with a little bit of, an origin story from my guests, because this world is really fascinating. It's full of really interesting people who are doing something that is serving those who choose to drink differently for whatever reason, for whatever length of time. So, in your own words, starting wherever you'd like to start, what is the journey that's led you to the point of creating Penthouse Cocktails?
I quite like the term origin story. It makes me sound like the Joker.
There you go.
So I stopped drinking in 2019, so just before lockdown, which was probably a really good thing. My understanding is that a lot of people who were maybe on the edge of going into a darker place with drinking went there in lockdown because there was very little else to do. So good timing. So I stopped drinking. My partner Meg, who is 50% of Penthouse Cocktails, didn't because she didn't possess the same unhealthy relationship with alcohol that I do. But what we wanted to continue doing was having those relaxed nights in making cocktails together, and we did that for years and years. The full boozy stuff, experimenting with flavors. I'm quite a passionate cook, so the combination of flavors and textures, cocktails can have textures, was something that excited me about cocktails. And yeah, they're a bit of a pain to make, and you've got to set aside some time to do it. You can't really casually drink them. So we would dedicate a whole evening to making cocktails. But when I stopped drinking, how could that continue? So at that point, it was quite fortuitous because the low no space was starting to move beyond Beck's Blue. And that was pretty much it. Beck's Blue for years. And it was exploding in terms of spirits. We're going to call them spirits, even though they're not really spirits. In terms of spirits, which of course are the base and key component of cocktails. Mm-hmm. So I was forced to come up with different ways to make cocktails that didn't contain alcohol taste not awful.
Okay.
So I came up with a few random recipes and really liked them. And I thought, hey, this is actually quite, like, I can still keep drinking, put the little garnish on and everything like that, have a bit of fun, the whole ritual of it. So we did that throughout lockdown. And when all the bars closed, a few of them were trying to generate some extra income by doing boxes with pre-bottled cocktails in that were not necessarily the full thing in one bottle, but multiple bottles with a little bit of a garnish. And then they would have Zoom parties, Zoom webinar things where you'd make them together, and then the bartender would explain what is in each spirit and how it affects the flavour, and it was a nice way to fill an evening in lockdown. And we thought, they were pretty good at making cocktails at home, and we could do something like this. And the market has been educated as to consume more things online at home. So you take I'm sure you've heard of Gusto, HelloFresh. They've been knocking around for years. We thought, well, why don't we do similar, but for cocktails? Take inspiration from those bars who are just like bashing out boxes to keep themselves afloat, and use the skills that we've got to make nice, tasty drinks. Let's just give it a go. Penthouse Cocktails the name was inspired by where we lived at the time. We lived in a penthouse, and some of our best memories were just being in that penthouse above the world, making cocktails. Okay. And so we launched the business, and it might seem like a bit of a challenge to try and create complete equality of cocktails, alcohol, full alcohol, and most 90% of them are non-alcoholic, but have the same cocktail. To try and mirror that experience that we have. Oh, I fancy a chocolate orange spritz. Oh, which version? Alcoholic or non-alcoholic? It's full equality between the cocktails. Because I was also frustrated by our experiences going out to cocktail bars and restaurants as a sober drinker, and there would be a menu this long for fully alcoholic cocktails, and then for like 4 heavily bulked out with soda mocktails. I really hate that term because it makes it sound lesser. Mock. Yeah. It's not a pleasant word anyway. So complete equality of cocktails. So we thought, right, why don't we design cocktails that can not only be sent properly, so you can't send that much fresh stuff, it's got to keep, but also not fool the customer, but give the non-alcoholic drinking customer a similar experience to what they would have fully alcoholic. That is my villain origin story. We've been going for a couple of years now, and it's not my full-time gig at all. I have a job. The aim is to reach more people, but in the current economic climate, people are less likely to reach into their pockets. So the challenge is competing over a limited amount of people's resources with so many companies who are not just cocktails or alcohol or whatever, who are all competing for that smaller amount of disposable income that you have. And in the low alcohol or no alcohol space, that is definitely tougher, I would say. It's historically, alcohol consumption has gone up in times of strife, and it's not the most stable environment at the moment. So I can only imagine that alcohol consumption is going up because people essentially want to forget, don't they? You can't do that with a low or no alcoholic cocktail, but I guess you could. You can have an experience at home, and lockdown has trained people to want to stay in, especially when going out is ridiculously expensive. When you're paying 15 quid for a cocktail, why not do something at home? Still have that similar kind of bar experience, bar quality cocktails, but without spending 200 quid on a night out.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really interesting point, actually, about during times of strife and depression, alcohol consumption generally goes up. But actually, as you mentioned earlier on, during COVID, a lot of people, yes, alcohol consumption went up, but then it went down because a lot of people were doing it on a regular basis, and they went, actually, this isn't sustainable for me. Like, whether or not I'm going to give up completely, I just need to cut back and start drinking less.
Yeah.
And it is tough out there for the industry at the moment. I've spoken to a lot of other founders, lots of other brands, lots of other people that do various things in the low-no space. And it is tough at the moment, but I think it's tough within growth. I think we've had some growth and we're having a dip, but we've not gone back down to where it was, say, 5 years ago, because the interest in services like yours, like mine, like all the drinks that are on the shelf behind me, is definitely growing at a rate of knots. Granted, from a small base, but I guess, as Jazz would say, the only way is up.
Yep. The only way is up. You're right. And it is from a small base, but I think the people who are interested in that sort of thing tend to be more committed to it rather than being casual, and they've also got less choice. Yeah, there's a plethora of non-alcoholic spirits, non-alcoholic beers, wines on the market, but nothing compared to the alcoholic space. So they have less room to maneuver, so they're going to be going back to the same brands over and over again, and they're not cheap. They are the price of a usual spirit, or even sometimes more. So people will stick to what they know. Oh, I really liked this non-alcoholic gin. I'm going to get another bottle of it because it represents an investment to me.
Yeah. Speaking of sort of, you mentioned there's a plethora of choices out there. You've been producing, or you've been making your cocktails box for a couple of years now. I'd love to get your thoughts on how you've seen that market change in terms of what is available out there. Not only just the growth, because that's a given now, but in terms of the quality and the selection and the choices that lead you to make for what goes into a Penthouse box.
Absolutely. I'm going to tackle that in a roundabout way, as I have been doing everything today.
Go for it.
It's really challenging to make a non-alcoholic cocktail that is close to the fully alcoholic version.
Okay.
So take, for example, our cocktail Over the Rainbow. It's got about 5 or 6 different ingredients in it. It's a true cocktail. It's got loads of stuff in. And it's not just your syrups, which of course cross over between full alc, no alc, lovely. But it's also got some liqueurs and spirits in. So it's got limoncello, which is hard to find in a non-alcoholic version, but can't be easily replaced by something that tastes like it. You just end up putting more lemon juice in there. It just becomes a sour then. So things, more specialist non-alcoholic stuff, like non-alcoholic or lemon zero, we found underpins the non-alcoholic version of that cocktail. Stuff like Strike's not vanilla vodka can stand in for vanilla liqueur. Something like what is it? Skinny Irish cream liqueur you can use instead of Bailey's. So you have to be more creative, because you can't just go, right, well, this cocktail, the alcoholic version, contains Manzana Verde. It's a green apple liqueur. We can't just put in apple juice. It's not going to be the same. We have to find something that is a one-to-one comparison. It might not taste exactly the same. Of course, it's not going to taste exactly the same. But the expansion in more specialist liqueurs, spirits is great for us, and we wouldn't be able to function without it. It's not just gin, rum. Gin and rum were around for quite a long time, non-alcoholic versions. Great as bases. In terms of the growth, yeah, sure. We have to be careful with, because that growth also does not take into account companies who just die. So there was a particular raspberry liqueur, non-alcoholic raspberry liqueur that we were using, and that company just died. So we had to hunt around for a substitute, and that was hard. So yeah, there's growth, but then they drop off, and you've got to find another one, and then they drop off. So it feels a little bit more like an industry that very much is growing and failing in some areas because people try something and it doesn't sell, and then they try something else, and you go, "Oh, that sounds delicious, great," and then so you've got to account for that. Especially when it's not just a one-to-one crossover of syrups and citrus. You've got to hunt around for the more specialist stuff. And often we'll build our drinks around the non-alcoholic version because we could come up with a million different fantastic recipes for the alcoholic version because it's all there. It's not going to go away. But if there's no equivalent in the non-alcoholic space, we can't do it. We won't do it because it's got to be complete quality of cocktails. Even the branding is 50-50 pink, blue. Everything's 50-50 balance.
Yeah.
Complete choice. Where we even list the non-alcoholic version first, just to make people aware that this is what we have. Because 95% of the sales are alcoholic, which means there's still 95% more growth in the non-alcoholic versions that we could do. And you tend to find that people who do order the non-alcoholic version keep coming back because it's all they've got. There's no one else out doing the non-alcoholic cocktails, and certainly no one who is doing the two together. So if you do have a couple, or if you have a party and one person doesn't drink, they don't feel left out because they can drink exactly the same as what everyone else is drinking. And over the course of my ramblings, I have forgotten the question.
That's fine. That's fine because actually you've imparted some very very valid thinking points there. But it was a lot around how you're finding the choosing what spirits are going into or ingredients are going into the non-alc box. But I like what you said about the fact that you are building your cocktails from the non-alcoholic version first and then matching an alcohol full one. Yeah. Because that makes sense to me. It's particularly because I have a bar background, so I understand how easy it can be for a talented bartender. You give them some alcohol and a couple of mixers to go with it. They can come up with something pretty decent. Anything. But actually doing that with alcohol free is really different because it doesn't taste the same and it doesn't mix the same. And I find that people are often, I was speaking with Ben Branson, who's the founder, I know you all know, of Seedlip. He's just launched Silver. And he was saying in his episode that he finds it dangerous when brands refer to themselves as a non-alcoholic gin or a non-alcoholic whiskey, because it sets that expectation that drink should taste exactly the same. Are you finding in your communication with people, I know it's a smaller part of your business, that they're understanding what they should be getting in terms of making and drinking these non-alcoholic cocktails at home?
Positioning the communication around the non-alcoholic stuff is really tricky, and it is a balance. Because if you say, so we use Instagram primarily, we are on TikTok, but that's videos primarily, and we're just not very on the ball with making videos. But if we post an Instagram story every day, and if we were to do a run of, say, 3 non-alcoholic centered posts, then people drop off.
Really?
Because we're not a non-alcoholic brand. They're not there for that. We're a cocktail brand, and you don't want to be ramming it down their throats because they're not going to like it. They're not there for, if we were Penthouse Mocktails, then that's quite clear what we're about and expect some non-alcoholic content. But we're not that. They're here for the cocktails. So if you come across a little bit preachy, then people don't like that. I don't think people like that in any space. Cocktail space, whatever space. So positioning it as choice. Choice is how we do it. It comes as a non-alcoholic version or an alcoholic version. that's irrelevant. Here is the cocktail, and these are the flavors you're going to get. Do we big up individual spirits of this will taste like gin and you will not know the difference? No, we don't, because it's just not true. I think you could probably get away with it in some of the larger, more flavorful cocktails, but where they're kind of hinged on one singular spirit. So say take our Sakura sour, which is a little riff on a whiskey sour. In a whiskey sour, you expect to taste whiskey. Yeah. And you're not gonna with the non-alc version. You're gonna taste something nice, but we don't ever claim blind taste test. Oh, which one's the? You're gonna know. So why would you position it like that? And I totally agree with Ben. If you're saying that this is a non-alcoholic gin and it doesn't taste like gin, well, this is not what I was expecting. I think that's how cocktails lend themselves quite well to non-alcoholic spirits, because in a gin and tonic, there's nowhere to hide. You're expecting to taste the gin, but with a cocktail, the base spirit is less relevant, really, when you've got passion fruit syrup and lemon juice and bitters and everything. I want to taste them. I don't particularly care too much about the base spirit. So mocktails are actually a really, really good way to consume it, instead of, say, pouring yourself a double measure of Lyre's American malt, which is actually great, but I wouldn't just have a glass of 50 mils of that with ice and go, ooh, what wonderful whiskey, because it's just it's not the same. Does that answer the question?
It does indeed, it does. Do you think that they ever will be the same, or that they ever should try to be the same?
I think they never will be the same, because alcohol is such a unreplicatable, not just flavour, but it affects the senses in other ways. I'm not talking about intoxication, but it's got that burn. Yeah, you can sort of replicate that, but it feels more like all of your senses are filled with this sort of like gas, like vapors from the alcohol.
Yeah.
It behaves in a totally different way to what is essentially flavoured water, which are what the non-alcoholic spirits are. Should they be the same? Not really. I don't think so. I think, why can't they be taken on their own merit, as long as you understand their limitations? And I think what some companies possibly struggle with is positioning it as a direct one-to-one. We can do it because it kind of is, because it's one part of many. But if you're going around selling a bottle of whiskey, most people's experience of whiskey is to drink neat or possibly in a whiskey sour, and it's not going to provide the same experience. But that's educating the market problem rather than a product problem.
Yeah. I think that's that educating people, that informing them, giving them the information and managing expectations, I think is really important. Because I think when people are new to drinking low and no, because the thing that I think a lot of people forget is that most people that are drinking low and no drinks in general are still also drinking full strength drinks. Mm-hmm. They're choosing these for times when they don't want to have that alcohol, and going in with a direct comparison is going to mean that the low and no drink is always going to come off worse, because you're not giving it that sort of fair opportunity, as you said in one of your articles, to judge it on its own merit. Is this a good drink? Do I enjoy it? Does it taste nice? Is it working for whatever moment I'm trying to achieve? Do you have any suggestions or tips for people when it comes to making cocktails at home with non-alc spirits so that they can get the most out of it? Obviously, the first and foremost tip is to get yourself a box of Penthouse Cocktails. Of course.
No, it's not. Okay. So if I had someone new to low and no, I would say choose a cocktail that has a lot of other flavors going on. So I was hesitant to bring this up because you were in the hospitality industry, and I bet you hate mojitos from a customer delivery perspective. Having worked in bars
I've made
myself,
more than 1,000 in a week, felt like most of the time.
hideous cocktail, isn't it? Hideous, horrible thing to make. Awful. I love them.
Yeah.
Something like that, and I don't want to preempt my barbecue drink. I'm not going to mention it again. I'll pick something else. But something like that, you've got a lot of extra flavors. You've got texture. So you've got texture from the soda. You've got flavor from the mint, and you've got a sweet and sour. It's almost irrelevant whether you pick a tequila substitute or a rum substitute or a gin substitute in that, because it will add a little hum at the bottom, but it's not going to be the overriding flavour. But that is true of a normal mojito as well. It's not, oh, this is a lovely rum drink. Well, you could make it with vodka, and it's not going to change that much. So my tip for people making cocktails at home is use different interesting flavours, and don't let the low or no spirit do the heavy lifting, because it doesn't have the muscle to do that. But let it be part of a whole orchestra of ingredients, and they're all singing together, and you might have your base as the non-alcoholic version spirit. When that's true of other fully alcoholic cocktails, don't let it stand on its own. Give it a hand, a sweet and sour hand.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and I think what I like about talking to you, Jonny, is that you're very honest and you don't pull the punches. And a lot of people would have said to that, these spirits, they do a great job. If they've got a great purpose, you got to find the right one. But what you're saying is, let's be realistic. These drinks can't quite hold their own weight in terms of being mixed in with lots of other strong, heavy, deep flavors. So find things that work with it. Yeah. And I think that's good advice, is to use it in tandem with other things. Yeah. Because other than Ben Branson Silver, there aren't even any other producers out there who are specifically making sippable, like non-alc dark spirits or things that they're saying have this on their own. They are intended, as most full strength spirits are as well, intended to be mixed with something else, which is why not many people are just drinking it straight.
It elongates the experience as well. Because you say you pour yourself a glass of full strength whiskey, unless you've had a really bad day, you're not going like that. You are sipping, you might consume it over half an hour, because it's quite strong and you'll gag. If you pour yourself a non-alcoholic whiskey, you can go like that. You've got to treat it the same, and also the mind gets tricked as well. So if you put a clean tequila in a mojito, it's not doing a massive amount, but it is doing something. And if you know it's in there, you're going, oh, I can really taste that. It tastes a bit tequila-y, doesn't it? Well, does it? Maybe it does, but it will probably taste a lot more if you think it will.
Yeah.
So use a little bit of trickery and help the non-alcoholic spirit out. I appreciate that you think I'm quite honest. I think I'm probably approaching it more from a consumer angle than I am from a hawking a product angle. I can't imagine any founder of a non-alcoholic cocktail spirit company is going to come on and go, well, it doesn't taste like much.
No, that would probably be counterproductive.
We are B2C, and they are B2B to C. So they've kind of got to sell their product, whereas we include it as one of many.
Change tactic a little bit here, but still talking about what you're doing with Penthouse. In one of your recent articles for Low No Drinker magazine, which, as I mentioned before, are absolutely brilliantly penned, you talked about going out with your lovely lady wife who still consumes full strength alcohol. And you've mentioned that you don't yourself. I'm really interested, first of all, because as much as I love my husband, I don't think I could work with him and have both of us still be alive at the end of the week. So I'm fascinated by couples that work together, and especially considering that you are doing something that is so ingrained in who you are as people. You not consuming alcohol at all, working in an industry and with a product that does contain full strength alcohol, and then socializing with that as part of the way that you interact together. How do you guys balance all of that from a personal and from a professional point of view?
It's a really good question. Essentially, it's a clear delineation of duties. So she is very good at packing the boxes neatly and quickly, whereas I can do it neatly or quickly. And that is what she does, whereas I am good at the bottling side. I do all of the graphic side and the social media stuff. I'm very ideas, less about the admin, whereas she does the right. Okay, well, we're running out of this gin. We need to order that. That's more behind the scenes. So there isn't an overlap of duties, which can sometimes lead to conflict if you're both stepping on each other's toes, or you think that something should be done a certain way, and the other person thinks otherwise. Well, there's a separation, so we don't really have that. This is also not our full-time gig. I think if it were, there could potentially be more conflict, because the aim would be to go full-time and make this our jobs, and then of course you add another 200 layers of complexity that can create conflict. In terms of the product, we both have to like it. So when we write the cocktails, I'm kind of writing them for both. Even though 95% of the sales are the fully alcoholic ones, she's got to like it, and I've got to like my version as well. And if one of them's lacking, then got to rewrite it and try again. So, but you've got that different perspective of the customer, essentially. Would two people, one of whom drinks and one of whom doesn't, be able to both enjoy the same thing? Well, we can test it right here in this kitchen. So it's kind of a unique position to be in. I don't need focus groups or anything like that. We have a ready-made test team based on our own personal preference. Not everyone's going to like every drink we do. We do have a whole spread so that there is going to be something for everyone, be it drinker or non-drinker, sweet, sour, fruity, long, short, tall, fat, polka dotted. It works well at the moment as just the two of us as a team. I'm sure that there are myriad ways in which we could come into conflict in our approach, but at the moment, much like a good cocktail, it's balanced. I need reining in a lot of the time because I'm very do this, let's do this. Whereas she's a lot more cautious, and that kind of works well in terms of that push and pull. Mm-hmm. So at the moment, it's fine. We'll have the next podcast in a year, and I'm divorced.
No. You'll be at the top of your game, I'm sure. You've mentioned a couple of times that the non-alc side of the business is the smallest side, so it's only 5% of the business at the moment. And obviously, we've touched on this sort of, I guess, what's it being called as awful April, where everything's going up and everything is just draining us of money. That aside, because nothing lasts forever, as I've been promised. What are your sort of plans and thoughts on how you'll be growing the non-alc side of the of the business, and reaching more people, or getting it out to more hands? Because I think there aren't many. As you mentioned before, I don't know of any other subscription service. I know of other subscription services, but none that do what you do in terms of having both sides available for people. And I think that more people need to know that this dual way of drinking is de rigueur for daily life for everyone. So what are your sort of thoughts and plans on how we can get more people enjoying that kind of approach to Penthouse?
So it's not a subscription service, by the way. It's just buying boxes.
Oh, do you not do a subscription as well? Where did I get that from? I do apologise.
I don't know, but you've said it a few times and I keep meaning to tell you.
Yes, absolutely. No, absolutely. Slap on the wrist for me. I should know that better.
No, not at all. So it's both a strength and a weakness that we treat both fully alc and non-alc as equals, because if you grow one side of it, when there really isn't a side of it, you grow the business, then one is going to drag the other along regardless. Great. So you've only got to grow one bit. Would we ever launch any specific non-alcoholic products? Nope. Because it's got to have that balance. That is a weakness. You can't then branch out into a particular segment that you think is a good opportunity, because the alcoholic side's got to come too. So how do I see it growing? Stuff like this, writing for the magazine, doing podcasts. I don't know if, and this could be another weakness, if there was some non-alcoholic convention, if we would be all that welcome, because the alcoholic part is 50% of the business and it is integral to it. Whereas I think possibly we would be more welcome at a convention that's fully alcoholic. But, oh, by the way, it depends how the industry wants to position themselves, how inclusive they want to be. We're totally inclusive, possibly too much for the non-alcoholic side. But then it depends on the audience. So like you said, most people who drink non-alcoholic or low are drinking anyway. So I think those kind of people would not at all be bothered by the alcoholic side. Whereas if we would, I don't know, sponsor Alcoholics Anonymous, by the way, if we have a full alcoholic side, that would be a weakness. So I think finding our feet in the market, general expansion is the plan. It's all very well saying build it and they will come. But at the moment, everything, and not just us, everyone is in a bit of a holding pattern. What I have seen, and not just in the non-alcoholic space, but in the cocktail box space, is that companies do just stop operating. So it's a little bit like at the start of the 20th century with cars. There were 400 car manufacturers, and then by the end of the 20s, there were just like 5 or 6. You need, with any exploding industry, just oversaturation and then a survival of the fittest, and then you just end up with a few players in the market. And that's what I think is probably happening with low and no. I'm sure there's some industry experts who would totally disagree with me, but that's just what I'm seeing as a consumer, and that's how I approach everything. What would I want to buy? Well, I'm not going to invest 40 quid in a bottle of something I don't know what it tastes like.
Yeah, I think you've got a valid point there, because you mentioned this earlier on. You know that whilst it's a growing category, that there are lots of brands, producers that fall off of that growth spike, and I think that's the same. That's fair for any industry, any business. You are going to have, especially one that is gaining so much popularity so quickly, and a lot of people are seeing that there's an opportunity here and trying to, for want of a better phrase, take advantage of that opportunity. That not all of it is going to be great. Mm-hmm. Not everything that comes into this space is going to be a winner. is going to be popular, is going to be enjoyed. And so there will be brands, there will be businesses that don't make it through the coal, I suppose. But I think that it is down to, as you say, think about what the consumer wants, and it is quality and it's care of consumers' needs that is going to win out in the end.
Value for money.
Yeah.
There's less of it. People are going to spend it wiser than they have been, and they're going to think more carefully about how they use limited resources. So you've got to convince them not to get the other guy's product.
And you're right, there is a challenge as well for a unique position like yours, where you are serving both sides, because whilst I think that both sides need to be served, it's hard then to get the right balance of message out there. Because I find that myself. So, because as you know, within the magazine or within Low No Drinker, I talk about mid-strength as well, and things that do still contain alcohol. And so there will be a lot of people who have come across, I've had people say, oh, great, you've got a sober magazine. I'm like, it's not a sober magazine.
Nope.
It's a magazine for people that want to drink less. And those who are adamantly teetotal would not necessarily want to see an article about a 10% gin or about a 3% beer. But at the same time, I want to reach those people who are still drinking so that they know that they can go, oh, actually, I can drink less, I can drink differently. And it is hard, isn't it, when you're serving two markets almost to try and find the language that speaks to them both.
Yeah, there's nuance. And in today's TikTok swipey brain rot culture, how do you convey nuance? Something as nuanced as low alcohol. We had more low alcohol drinks, but we have throttled it back down to one that just can't be done as fully non-alcoholic because people don't get it. I'd spell it out for them in our FAQs, but come on, you've lost them by that point. If they're going, oh, it's 1.2%. Oh no, oh wow, can I drive on that? Of course you can. It's like 80 ml of liquid with 1.2%. Of course you can. But how do you convey that in a space that is every industry is competing for your attention, and it's often the simplest messages it's always the simplest messages that will get through. And how do you get that nuance? I don't think you can. I think it being there alongside other more simple messages is possibly the only way forward. Great magazine, by the way. I didn't say that earlier.
Thank you.
Wonderful magazine, and it is low and no. I love low alcohol cocktails. They're the best of both worlds. I'll gladly put a little bit of the special stuff in, 10 ml or something, because it does bring just more complexity of flavour. It unlocks it. But selling that to someone is a lot harder. So yeah, you've not just got one subset of, if it were called Sober Magazine, simple, or if it were called Booze Hound Magazine, great. But it is a whole spectrum of people who are all either cutting down drinking or not drinking at all for a variety of different reasons. There's a lot to, you can't please everyone. So
True.
Maybe don't try, but as a commercial entity, you're going to be focusing. The temptation will be to focus on the easiest quick wins, the low-hanging fruit, to use a horrible corporate term, and that is straight non-alcoholic. The temptation must be there. Flip side for us, the temptation is to scrap the non-alcoholic bit altogether and just focus entirely on the alcoholic. That'd be a lot easier. Could make some fantastic cocktails, but that would be inauthentic for who I am.
Yeah,
I'm sitting there miserably bottling vodka, not able to enjoy any of it. It is a sacrifice and a balance and a great deal of nuance. And I don't claim to have figured it out. Still trying.
Aren't we all? So, where then, Jonny? Let's get people exploring your boxes, which aren't subscriptions, as I said. But perhaps that's something you should consider.
We
There
are
you go. Maybe
considering.
that's why I kept saying it, because I'm thinking, this is what you could do. Who knows?
It's absolutely one of the many ideas I have swirling around in my head.
Many. It's hard, isn't it? When you're growing a business, you're bombarded. I feel like I'm bombarded by my own brain every day with ideas like, I could do this and I could do that and I should give this a go and perhaps I could do it like this. And those guys did that over there. And then I sit down at my desk and I'm like, okay, that was 75 ideas in the space of half an hour.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I've got 108 emails that I need to reply to.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
Oh gosh. So if people want to get a hold of a box, if they want to follow the Penthouse Cocktails journey, because you mentioned a couple of times your social media, I know you're quite active on there. So where do people find out more about you?
Instagram, just type in Penthouse Cocktails, blue and pink logo. We're on YouTube, again, just type in Penthouse Cocktails, TikTok, Facebook.
There you go.
If you get Facebook, don't we?
There you go. Still
and
there.
once you know it, type in Penthouse Cocktails and we'll be there. But the best way is just go on our website, and there's links to all the social media through there. I like to think it's an easy to use, intuitive website that clearly displays all the cocktails and tempts people. But that's penthousecocktails.co.uk. But we are top page of Google, so just type in that.
And when people go to your YouTube channel as well, they can find you there in one of your spectacular bow ties, which if you listen to audio, you can't see. Jonny was proudly telling me before we press record that it is a real bow tie that he ties himself like a big boy. Yep. But what's on your videos on your YouTube channel? What can people find from you there?
They are entirely how-tos for our drinks. So recipe card, I don't know if you can see.
Yep.
QR code will take you direct to the YouTube channel.
Great.
There is a marked increase in quality and a marked decrease in my weight over the course of the videos, and they also are shorter and much more consumable. They're under 2 minutes long by the last sort of 10 videos, and they also include outtakes because we are just not YouTubers. They're worth a watch, if nothing else, watching us make fools of ourselves. We are YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and we're also highly responsive. If you message us, it would physically hurt if I didn't respond within 2 minutes. So if you just want to say hi, do that too.
Fantastic. I will make sure that's all linked in the show notes. And I do recommend people go over and check out your YouTube videos. It's great that you do these explainers and tutorials about how to make the drinks, because I think that when it comes to making drinks at home, it can be quite daunting for some people. As you mentioned earlier on, it's not a quick one and done. You've got different ingredients, different bits and pieces, different glassware that you need to consider when it comes to making great drinks. So I'll make sure that's all linked.
Thank you very much. Often have I wished for a Penthouse Cocktails style box that I can just get 2 bottles and go done, rather than faffing around with 6 different glass bottles. So even if you use this as like a sort of a gateway drug to making cocktails at home, then that's fine too.
Fantastic. You have such a way with words, Jonny. Such a way with words. Right, it's time for my barbecue question, which is a question that I ask everybody who comes on the show, because I truly believe in spreading the low-no love around the world, wherever you are and whatever you like drinking. It is, as I mentioned, a spring morning, and so typically in the UK it's raining. So I need you to cast your mind forward to a summer day when it is nice and hot and sunny, and you and your lovely lady wife are off to a barbecue with some friends, and you're bringing some low-no drinks along with you to enjoy. As I mentioned before, of course, you've got a wide plethora of drinks that you can choose from your cocktail repertoire. But you yourself, when you are just relaxing and enjoying yourself, give me one or two or whatever drinks that you like to enjoy on a hot sunny day.
I'm going to give you three.
Hit me. Love it.
That's all right. A nice spread
Yeah.
of them. So I really, really like the 00 Corona.
Okay.
I think that is, I mean, I can't even remember what normal beer tastes like anymore, but that's what I imagine it tastes like. And it is also a very tasty beer in its own right. I like the bottle. I like you can put a little bit of lime in it and stick it in the freezer for half an hour, and that's delicious. That is what I would absolutely bring to a barbecue. One of the ones I would. I'm going to mention the mojito again.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's all
But
right.
I like to make it with Clean Co's Clean Tea, which is a tequila substitute.
Okay.
I like how tequila-y it is, or at least the floral bit of tequila without the burn and regret. And I love fresh mint. Love fresh mint. So it is a little bit more of a pain to make, but I really like them, and you can make them last a little bit longer as well. I think you drink a lot quicker, conversely, when it's non-alcoholic because it's so drinkable.
Yeah.
Say you were drinking alcoholic beers, you're a bit slow by beer number 4. Whereas with non-alcoholic, you just plow through them. So if they're longer, you feel like you're having a proper drink. Maybe that's why restaurants bulk out every non-alcoholic drink they have with enormous amounts of soda. And the third one it's called, and this is one it's a low one.
Okay.
And this is one we both enjoy. It's called a Select Fizz. So it uses grapefruit juice, Select, which is like an aperitif, an alcoholic aperitif. And you'd usually use something like Prosecco or Champagne, but we use Prosecco, which is an excellent substitute for Prosecco. Better than Prosecco, Meg thinks, and she's a drinker.
Okay.
That can be made in bulk, en masse, and it's easy to do and even easier to drink. So there's your 3. Nice. And that'll do me. Don't need that many. 3 or 4 is fine. We filled with sausage.
and that Prosecco, it's so easy to get hold of, isn't it? Because it's everywhere now. For me, they just kind of came out of nowhere. And I know, the whole overnight success thing, 10 years in the making, I'm sure. But they are now in all your supermarkets, and it is really one of the easiest drinking, mass-produced, alcohol-free Proseccos out there. So
it's banging. It's really, really good. Non-alcoholic wines generally taste like shit, but that is really, really nice. And I would have a glass of it just as is. You don't need to mix it or anything. We do use it or we have used it in the past in Christmas boxes, Halloween boxes that call for a top up of fizz, and you just put Prosecco in there, and it's great. Okay, it's lovely.
So you've not found a non-alc wine yet that's ticking your boxes?
Not that interested in the wine.
Okay.
Just not that interested. I like the texture you get from the fizz, so I'd gladly just get a bottle of Prosecco and just plough through that Christmas morning and have done. Yeah. Without.
Fair enough. Jonny, it's been amazing talking to you. We didn't get much time to touch on your articles that you've been submitting for Low No Drinker magazine for some time now. So I just want, while I've got you here in front of all of Low No Nation, to say thank you very much. Your writing is, hopefully people can see from our conversation, very entertaining. You have a way of just opening up topics really honestly and sharing your unique perspective, which I find really adds character to the magazine, because quite often when you're doing something like this, and because I try very hard to not make it a sobriety or a recovery piece, I want to look at different perspectives and different thoughts on things. And I like that you don't necessarily come in at everything with rose-tinted spectacles of sobriety. You're tackling some things far more honestly, and I love that. I know that you've got a couple of pieces coming up for us. You're doing one on glassware, which people don't recognize is actually quite important when you're talking about enjoying your drinking experience and not just throwing it into a tin mug.
Yep. Unless it's a julep, then you should.
Of course. And yeah, so you've done some fantastic articles. I will make sure that people know about those ones and where they can go and find them. And like I said, your contact links so they can go and check you out and get hold of a box of Penthouse Cocktails, whether they want that with alcohol or without.
However they choose, they have the option.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jonny.
Thank you so much for having me. It's whizzed by, hasn't it? It's been a real pleasure. I feel like we could have kept going for another hour.
Next time.
Next time.
We'll do that for the next one.
Sounds good to me.